knowing that Richard probably can't do what this is and everything that we see going on, can't do it really alone. And we all know that whenever he took that sacrifice money and started spending it, just the fact that he started throwing it around in my eyes made it pretty clear that he was making moves because he could. And I think that alone is pretty bullish, because with the lawyers that he has and the people that he has by his side, if he wasn't, or he was still going to get annihilated, or if any more trouble than I believe than a fine, he wouldn't be throwing money around, just spending it at all. That sacrifice money in particular with those wallets. Although Richard is a pretty ballsy dude, I still think that after holding that for so long, and then buying SDI like we saw, and then everyone assuming by then taking that money, turning it into Ethereum, still holding the SDI, which he still has. That in my eye, that kind of opened up the doors to like, okay, well, there's something more to it than meets the eye. With Spark being such a new protocol, Spark launching like May 9th, like days before the actual launch of Pulsechain, the voting with MakerDAO, the on-chain that we saw, like he was like collecting different tokens that they had from them, like, such as RadBTC. Like they were made, like some kind of deal was being made, or some kind of at least communication was going on. So like whenever we saw that Winter's Mute was a company, I don't like the connection with Winter's Mute, just the fact they're an algorithmic trading company. They utilize bot technology. Like we're definitely seeing something like that on Pulsechain, some type of bot. I think it's probably another company's own servers. But I believe that Winter's Mute was the connection to the sacrifice money that they threw in, was more than likely related to the money that they raised for MakerDAO. So that was the connection I was trying to draw with them, and the fact that it is an algorithmic trading company that has this technology of literally bootstrapping liquidity into new chains and new layer ones, and the fact that we're definitely seeing bots come on, and they're kind of doing their work, and seemingly they're benevolent. We've seen them lose money. We've seen them literally trade and move around hundreds of thousands. That's the one thing about bots. Like they won't make a trade unless you tell it to lose money, or you tell it to, or if it's just on auto gain, it'll literally swap around and move around hundreds of thousands of dollars for pennies. So, and that's kind of what we've been seeing. And so it just seems like most of the bot technology that we've seen on Pulsechain seemingly seem to be benevolent, in my opinion. And one of the other things that we uncovered was the bots themselves were over on Ethereum, messing with deep and old liquidity pools, right? Some of these were locked liquidity pools, part of certain things that you wouldn't be able to get a hold of unless you either set it up a long time ago, or had some kind of voter connection within the Ethereum, that they wouldn't even be able to kind of get to it, so to speak. So it's almost like he went in, and whenever you're using this type of technology that I believe they use, which is Stability AI, and then there's another one called Stability Diffusion. I mean, of course, they kind of have their own reputations. They're both from the same guy, but the guy kind of got because it's a copying company. It's literally a company that goes in and copies images, copies architectural framework and technologies, and then literally comes out on the other end, and you have a full-fledged copy. So before the chain launched, and before the snapshot happened, well, he took the snapshot of Ethereum, and then he went into to a certain part of Ethereum itself, and he started liquidity pools that he had control over, and he started wrapping them up. You can almost think of it like a zip file. It's like he started rendering the chain up and making it to where it was more compacted. So whenever he took the next snapshot, it was like a more compacted file of like pools inside pools, folders inside folders, because that's the way the blockchain actually looks like. Whenever you take the blockchain and actually break it down, it's a list of folders. You double click that folder, it's another list of folders. You double click that folder, it's another list of folders. So he was doing it in a way to where he could take maybe a group of files or a group of folders that were just kind of off, like would have just kind of didn't make sense, and he just kind of rendered it up, and then he took another snapshot. And that's kind of my opinion, and the way the technology works itself is kind of why I think of it like that. And then so whenever he had Pulsechain, he did the same thing. So he came over to Pulse and he said, all right, now build the architecture the way that I told you to. So it started laying the groundwork for the zip files that he laid out. And now over time, it's been able to go in, and I believe that's why he's went over to Ethereum. And that's another reason why he told us to remove our liquidity. Like he's like, y'all, remove y'all's liquidity over on whatever, V3s or whatever, because we're not going to have access to it over on the Pulse chain because it's V2 stuff. So I think that's what he's uncovering and what he's unlocking. But another big thing is that he's doing it, and he did it to Binance. The same clear, like weird names of the files, the same exact weird NFTs, seemingly tied back to him also possibly taking a snapshot of the VSC, among maybe some other chains. And this is massive in our opinion. This is all like, again, this is kind of speculation. Like why he would be doing this to begin with. Because it's like with the 20x leverage that he has with SDI and the other things that he has the ability to do, with the copy token, if y'all don't know, like, so this other thing where it's like a real world asset type of token, to where anybody that comes in, like, so if you're trading an Ethereum to it, it takes it one Ethereum and it'll give you back one token, but it starts cataloging and categorizing these things and putting it like in a folder in the back where it remembers that this person gave me, one Ethereum. I only gave them one token, but the value is 3,000. So Blast, whenever you go in and look at their stuff is labeled and categorized exactly like some of this stuff that's on chain. It's not tracked. It says it's spam or scam, but if you look hard enough, there's actually real value tied to these, like real dollar values. Most of everything that I've seen was all stable coins. The stuff with the like USDT, things like that, it seems like he's been replacing it. And he's been using the 20x leverage. Now, again, this is highly speculative. With that real world asset token, what he could do is he could flash loan out the entire USDT side of liquidity pool, or he could technically create actual LP tokens and flash loan out LPs, like the entire LP. Like that's what in my opinion, that's what the 20x leverage is for. Literally flash loan it out and then give them their own copies. Why is this important? This is kind of the mind-blowing thing. Is we know that the bridge technology that's over here with the Spark Swap, which we don't think is related, but they do have it's super fast, and they're kind of doing it in a way to where it kind of works like an atomic swap, where you send tokens in and you can kind of have them sent somewhere else. So the way that things have been lying out and like from working out, like what we're assuming is that he's trying to connect these chains together and make a privacy, like a multi-chain, with deep liquidity, privacy EVM. If that's the case, it explains a lot of why he goes down. We all go down. And if you're in his position, where would you put your money, and how would you do that in a way to where before other people get in? The reason that they're unlocking that liquidity is it's only a matter of time before he comes in and takes it, or USDT token that that seemingly doesn't have much control, because we know for a fact MakerDAO's changing their name. They're getting rid of Maker. Whatever they're doing, it has to be worth getting away from a company that has grown to be as big as they are, as profitable as they are, worth billions, and to literally just hand it away to a company that's been here for 6 months. They have to go to something. Maker's making their own chain, which is going to be a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake type of ecosystem that's going to mint stablecoins. So it's going to be a deterministic type of ecosystem that you can actually determine based on the actual output, what the like input output, like if there's what's going to be coming out. They're not minting DAI though, right? They're minting wrapped DAI, WP DAI, WP USD. So where does that have to go after they wrap it? After it's wrapped, it has to literally become unwrapped somewhere. And the way you decentralize that is you have one chain that's kind of minting this wrapped version of it. Maybe you have Ethereum, and then maybe you also have Pulsechain that already has a bunch of DAI that's minted that it has to get up to, or like work why mint it when it's still in existence, and then technically they would be like the Federal Reserve the minting press, right? And then it would come to the pulse chain where the users and everyone would technically be through just default of what's what could be transpiring in our opinion. I know that could be kind of a big heavy hitter, kind of dropped it kind of early on, but it just there's a lot that explains that some of these chains, some of these things that he's been doing. Like we know for a fact, Spark itself launched on Gnosis. He's trying to connect communities. The other Spark that came from BSC, EMP. It seems like they have some like that. The bridge isn't something that's cheap in my opinion. I mean, I don't think until the DAO comes out, they're not going to announce any type of partnership or any type of anything. I don't think they might never. It's kind of like everything's been hush hush, and I think it's kind of been for a reason. Although it's not like in my opinion, I don't think they wouldn't be this far along and moving all these pieces unless they were almost done with it. And now they're just kind of either waiting for people to catch up to figure out what's going on. So it's like, or it's it's community is more community related than most of us could see. So it's kind of where we've been at the past few days, and just trying to past few weeks trying to connect the dots between Maker and Spark, which we know exists, right? And the fact that like Spark itself, like whenever they went in to do these, to get votes on or to do certain things, like to raise the debt ceiling for BTC or to, just whatever it is, whatever it might have been, the votes would always go through right away. So like they were able to literally like push through votes with their like seemingly with ease. And they were even saying that Ruin was pretty much using his own big bag to push these votes through for the end game, which is what they call it, the quote unquote end game, where they're literally giving up the name Maker DAO. The Maker DAO will no longer exist except for on Pulsechain and on Ethereum, and Spark will just kind of go around and build front ends, which is what they do, right? So you're able to get into this SDAI. Anyone can, and anyone can build a front end, and anyone can get the 20x leverage, right? And then the bots itself, or the technology itself, if you're utilizing the bot technology, it won't make a trade unless it's going to be a profitable trade, or unless you actually tell it to lose money. Would it ever, go out and make those types of inconsistent trades? Now the bots are, in my opinion, that's another massive thing. And you tie that to Atropa, right? Kind of change gears a little bit. Atropa, in my opinion, it does way more than what meets the eye, right? It's not there to pump DAI. It's there to, in my opinion, to protect DAI when it gets to the level that it needs to get to, or the social consensus reaches. Hey, DAI is $1, which it is on every other chain, and it'll just, with the liquidity and the amount of people, the sheer amount of people that are coming in, and centralized exchanges can't get it from anywhere else. If they're knocking on Maker's door and asking Maker where to buy it, where does Maker point them? More than likely to Pulse, because there's already 22 billion. What their whole goal within the next 3 years is to have 100 billion DAI minted in existence within the next 3 years. And we know, like, they took a snapshot of ETH proof of work, where I believe we saw Richard move 8 billion. It was a large sum of money of Hex moved over and put in their liquidity pools. Now they might have been using that for a snapshot to where they could just have that type of money to see what happens when they move it around. Or in my opinion, it could be utilized for incentivizing his community for sticking it through, and not buying into this insane theory, right? Because they just wouldn't. They wouldn't be the ones to buy PDI. They wouldn't be the ones. It's just kind of the way that he taught them, right? So by default, you're always going to have pushback from them. Because it's going to be hard for them to kind of wrap their heads around. But in my opinion, Richard Hart, his goal is to make as many different people wealthy as possible. So why would he do the exact same pumping up the bags of the same group of people over and over again? Whenever your goal is to make as many different people wealthy as possible, you're going to have to come up with a new version or a new play to make that happen. And I believe that is, quote unquote, the dumb money play of, it's so obvious that, PDI deserves to be $1, and, the crazy theories and everything else. It's just, it's going to be one of those things I think we look back on and we're like, well, yeah, it was always going to happen. I think we're starting to feel this thing in the community. They're like, we're starting to doubt Richard Hart. And I think that's what in his opinion, could imagine. I know it's not just me in my community that have, can't remember exactly who said it, but I flipped through and someone else kind of rendered and said the words as well. Like if Richard can pull this off, an EVM privacy chain. I can't remember exactly who it was, but so other people within the communities have been seeing it too, and the ability to have that, and then we know like Spark's technology that they're coming out with, like their bridging technology was like overwhelmingly powerful. Like it was almost to the point where like why would you need oracles on a bridge just for, and they were saying it was for DAI, just having the oracles on a two-way bridge, connecting all three chains makes sense. And then also that's where your single side liquidity for Pulsex could come into play, right? Like that's whenever you could literally single side stake up against this bridging technology, and seemingly everyone else could provide the other side of the bridge that way. I mean, it might not be private, it might be, but he's definitely unlocking deep pools of liquidity on those other chains for something, right? Is he bringing it over here? I mean, he could, but in my opinion,
Well,
doesn't necessarily make sense.
To mention about that is a lot of that value is he's purposely hiding, right? Like with the phishing contract situation, and he did that on 3 different chains.
He had the value.
Which is
correct.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
I also want to point out real quick. Today I noticed that one of the Pulsechain Sacrafice addresses actually moved some stables around, and it bridged it to the Pulsechain network using the bridge, and then it moved it from I think 2 to 3 wallets, and then back out into ETH, and then used Cow protocol to take zero slippage back into ETH from stables. So Richard's buying up ETH. With these stables, and we know that 7 of the wallets that received funds from the Pulsex sacrifice recently deposited 20 million DAI each wallet into the SDAI protocol for Spark. So this all this speculation and all this stuff that we're looking into is it's bringing out quite a bit of evidence.
100%. Appreciate that, guys. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of things, and that's one of the main reasons about bringing this up is so y'all guys can start doing the research too, and then so we can all kind of come to a figurehead of where this narrative could lead and what it means for getting into things early. Where do we stand as a community? Is kind of are we turning our heads and getting mad because our bags aren't being pumped, or I think anyone that's been around the Atropa community has felt this new, like a resurgence, so to speak, of not just hope, but of just like what true DeFi is. The ability to launch a brand new chain with open dexes and literally a layered liquidity system. What he's building, in my opinion, is pretty much what he sees as the way money flows through an economy. So he has all these weirdly named coins like leprosy and cocaine and whatever whatever. But like, how do you make bots, or how do you make the blockchain simulate how money moves through regular society? Because in regular society, you have people that are drug addicts that go off and their money gets dwindled down and gets spent off that way and goes to and then you have the people that are entrepreneurs and they're going off this way with their money. And of course, they're never going to go down there. But if you want to simulate, like with the botting technology, that would never actually be degenerate unless you teach them to be degenerate or have them go. So you're able to create these layers of liquidity layers that simulate pretty much exactly how money would flow in like an actual real economy, even to down to the point to where there's literal open-ended drugs, just like in the actual world. But that comes back to what does Atropa mean or do? Like, in my opinion, like the next contract up from Atropa, and then from the PDI holders after Atropa is the Circle 2. Circle 2 pretty much tracks PDI to the point of double, right? And then since everything is ratioed out and it keeps going higher, like, so you have Circle 2, and then I'm sure there's not really a Circle 4, but there's going to be something that's ratioed up to that extent. And then there's one on top of that, there's one on top of that, there's one on top of that, and they're all the way up to like the $1 million coins with like a little bit of supply. And since they're all tied together and the bonding technology is there, it protects DAI 100%. How does that happen? It's like imagine a waterfall with like, it's like so all they have to do is control it from the top to the bottom. So they're only having to mess with this coin and this coin. They're not having to chase it around. So like if someone tries to flash loan out DAI, or once DAI reaches the level of where it needs to be, this technology, the way that it would work, like these things act like a waterfall effect, to where as soon as it gets to $1 or someone tries to take a flash loan out against it, these bots will front run the other bot and they'll just ping the price starting from the top all the way back down to the circle 2. And it's like they're not having to chase this thing around because the mismatch ratios, like it's literally just a super insane line of defense that happen on stablecoins is due to flash loans and manipulation. Like this makes the chain pretty much MEV proof. It once this MEV proof, and it definitely makes DAI flash loan proof because they'll front run the bot itself. And again, the bot won't make a trade that it's going to lose. Now that again, it's speculative because I mean he built that for him. Like, but just the way that I see a trope, like it's literally how money moves through an economy, like just the monetary flow of money from it minting, from it flowing around, and then I'm sure that they all have more roles than just that, so to speak. But in my opinion, that's the strongest use case is that it is literally a defender of DAI, and like in such a way that like is massive. Because if you can't flash loan out against it, and you can't, but only like that's why they have DAI to where you can turn it into SDAI. Like DAI itself could never be, it wasn't ever really wanted to be flash loaned against or attacked because he was literally had 150% collateralization rate. So if you did that, you would get 66 cents to the dollar. So you would have to make it worth it, right? But this is just like an extra line of defense against that, right? And then Maker changing their name, coming out with they want to be more of a meme, have more units, so to speak, in their stuff. It's just like it's kind of something Richard would tell them. It's just like in my opinion, that's a Richard thing. Unit bias, understanding that their token's worth 3,000 now. It's kind of hard to get new people in. They're kind of resetting and understanding that Spark has taken over the whole lending aspect of things. And what would be better for them than to be able to go in and be the not the gatekeepers, but the decentralization of the actual DAI protocol, like in such a way that it becomes more decentralized. It splits out. It's less of a headache for them, but it splits up the workload, so to speak. And like with these three combined, in my opinion, with the bridging technology that they're going to be coming out with, the Oracle stuff, I believe that a lot of it seems ready. I just think that we're just kind of waiting for more things to unfold. And I mean, like, it's pretty exciting in my opinion. Like we've been talking about it for the past couple of days. And it's just like what all do we say that we know? And then, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we only know what we know. The blockchain doesn't lie about most of this stuff, so it's like it's all there for most people to see. I think that no one's ever going to come out and admit to anything. Just like whenever when he made his tweet the other day when he had the Edgar Allan Poe, he's like, "Look what someone made," And it's just like that's a super cool technology. I mean, that in of itself is it's heading us down down a path of massive he never liked speaking about the JPEGs, the JPEG aspect of NFTs, like but he never said he didn't like NFTs. He just said when the utility comes and when the ideas comes, that's whenever I would possibly jump on board. So it seems he's definitely coming on board, and I think that's exciting because like being able to write things onto the blockchain like that and just gives a whole new power to things. Because what we're seeing, like another thing with Atropa, is like the crazy thing of like dysnomia itself, and then like what we saw with taking the the token name and it's tied to a YouTube, like with the K-pop thing. It's like another thing that Atropa is trying to open up is this touch into the real world. Like something where the blockchain and the real world can finally meet and merge, and you would be using the blockchain technology and you wouldn't even realize it. And I think, the gaming aspect of it, opening it up to the world, and then utilizing that as a way to actually decentralize. With their layer 2 that they're building, right? I mean, it's like if they're that far ahead, there's a reason they're that far ahead, like because they believe that whatever's coming is going to come so hard and so fast that like number one, that you want a layer 2 just to have it, but Atropa is going to be so big and itself, you want another type of decentralization of Atropa to where it can be protected in a way like it's protecting DAI, and this way it's like an off-chain type of DAO, so to speak, that has this gaming feel to it that just brings more people in, and then also just showing people like yeah, just like the Tropa whole thing is like, it's pretty massive. And like the fact that either him and Richard never spoke, or the only way they ever spoke was like through blockchain. I think there might be more to it than that, but it's like they definitely had to have seen each other on testnet doing something, because we know that James on testnet was up to some pretty wild stuff, and then seemingly went over here, changed some of the names of things, and again, I think that there's more that meets the eye to some of the Satropa stuff. And as it continues to unfold, I think it gets more and more exciting for everyone within the community. And I know as other people write it off, and it's just launching shitcoin after shitcoin. It's like once you figure out that it's like, oh, it's there to protect DAI, it's there to keep DAI where it needs to be. It's gonna control so much of the supply. And he's been nothing but a white hat and a good, nothing but a great person in this, I believe, as far as I could imagine anyone that could have that kind of control could be. And they just keeps building and keeps wanting to build, and asking us to build too, right? So you have people like PLS Pup and Sunny that are going off and building and like recreating these types of ecosystems, because it's what's needed to create these floors of liquidity, of just because it just helps protect the chain and then decentralize out the actual the path of the flow of money, right? So I think that's another thing with the Tropa that we probably won't know about until things get going and people's trying to sell large bags of DAI. I think it's going to push you into a decade, like if you try to sell a huge bag of it, and it'll help you. It'll force you into like some illiquid tokens and make you have insane slippage. I think that's another aspect of it that it could technically do, because since everything's tied together, I mean, it could have a way of protecting DAI once something has a certain amount of volume or value versus what's going on the chain at the time, and it might push you up into a second or third layer of a Tropa where it's just more illiquid, to where you're literally just getting eaten up with slippage on the way out, which would protect us against some of those guys that might have copies and so quote unquote dump everything. If for whatever reason, like if people think that those guys that find value over here come over here and just dump it, which we might see. I mean, we might see it touch $1 and come back down. We might see it go over, but I still think that a Tropa's main goal or purpose is to protect it whenever it gets there, and then clearly on its way there, it's been accumulating the whole time. But yeah, man, definitely exciting stuff, man. I definitely
and I think
can't wait
to go back to SDAI real quick. The interesting about, I mean, we were speculating on this last night, like what took so long for Richard to launch Pulsechain, and SDAI being potentially a major component of all this. SDAI launched 2 days before the Pulsechain fork, so SDAI was on chain, which is massive. So like that could have been what took so long for Pulsechain to launch.
I agree. Yeah. See, and that's the thing too, right? Like we know for a fact that only a few people. You have to be an admin within the protocol. You have to know how to work the protocol, and then like to even be able to take that leverage out and to be able to, we saw him give funds to Lido fucking months ago. We saw him give funds to Compound months ago. He was setting himself up to literally do what he's doing over on these other chains, to where he can go take leverage, and then literally he could either doesn't have to take as much leverage, and then he can go over to Lido, borrow from over there, so he can use other tokens and other things and just other aspects of it. And again, it's probably not even him. It's probably just literally the bots set to do what they're supposed to do when the money and the things are set in a certain position. These things, because in my opinion, it's been set and it's been laid out in a ducks in a row type thing. It's just been kind of, I think they're to the point now. They've executed. We've seen that he's kind of just laying out the hints. Buying the SDAI. We know that he's making an APY on that by holding it, but the collateralization, all the stuff that 9iron's done. Yeah, if y'all haven't read anything that 9iron's done, like some of the stuff that he's touched on, he's even touched on the fact of like it, how it's going to reach the 22 billion, and then be over collateralized and like 20x over collateralized, because he believes that that 22 billion is the actual number. Well, and honestly, that would make sense, because if you take a copy of something and you have it sitting over here, you have a copy of it. As soon as the values reach a certain point, of over there, then and the values are over there, are over here, but just like not in the same way, right? It's just more of a theoretical value. And honestly, that's all that really takes for something to peg, because everything else, like if Binance comes in and all these centralized exchanges want to buy DAI, and there's nowhere else to buy it but through Pulse. And that's seemingly what's going to happen, is because DAI itself will cease to exist. It will not, like it it'll still exist on ETH, but it won't be this in the same manner, because we know that they're coming out with something called Ether DAI, which is literally like ETH or DAI, I guess, which is the same thing. It's the weird copy token where you give it ETH, it gives you one back, gives you like it's like this. It's a way to onboard real world utility and real world assets onto chains. So it's like you can actually put like houses and land and use these things as like actual collateral, and that's massive, right? Like we saw MakerDAO utilize silver liquidity and things like that. And the other big thing about them opening up these deep pockets of liquidity is that they're front running fiat coming in here and throwing a bunch of money in on us again, to where makers spent all this time burning DAI, was because whenever people put fiat into the system, and you literally have to mint 2 coins out of thin air that are backed by nothing because they gave us 1 fiat, right? And if you look at and that right there, that puts 2 tokens that are $1 value and puts the blockchain in debt. And if you do that enough times, and if you have other companies that aren't following regulations or rules, and that's why Maker has went straight to the MCD, which is the multi-collateral DAI, to where it can be backed and be supported by tokens that are inside the ecosystem, or like the big players. It was first ETH, and then it was for BTC and ETH, and then they kind of spread it out, and then they through their protocol they could accept Maker, and then some other big tokens, and that's probably what we'll see over here. I don't know if Richard doesn't technically need to utilize the vaults in that same way. I mean, he might be able to utilize them in another way. That might be where we throw our single-sided liquidity, and then you have ink that is just going to be a very, very powerful weapon in all this as well. To bring. We also know that there's bounties going out for whales on outside the Pulse chain. There's like $5,000-$6,000 bounties coming out where these guys can move millions onto chain and not set off whale alerts. So we know that there's money moving around, and there's people watching, and there's they want their privacy, and I think Richard's always wanted that too. He's had to run away from Bitcoin, so to speak. Had to run away from the community. I'm sure the money's still there. He's had to kind of do the same thing with Ethereum, and I think that was the whole plan. He's like, look, the only safest place I can be is something that I create, and that the only safest place that he feels that he can be, that means that's where the safest place that his community can be, and the people that are inside crypto, because it's a dirty, dirty world, and it was either he gets a hold of that liquidity, someone else does. I mean, some of the liquidity pools were clearly his. He had literally set them up for the pictures, for the snapshots, rendered them up, and then literally de-rendered them. Just like told the technology to do it. And then if you look at you can go on YouTube and find this out too, but they're running the Solidity AI stuff on, I believe, 60% of the machines, the validators of Pulse Chain. So, if they're running that stability stuff, it's there for a reason. It's there to make the copy continue to maintain and reach these levels of quote unquote stability, but also diffusion, right? Where it's like these two different things of infusion and then diffusion of itself, to where it's just unrendering of the blockchain, to where when you're clicking on these liquidity pools, if you look at Pulse Chain, it's completely different than any other chain. You click on a liquidity pool, it's got 80 names in it, and everyone's in that liquidity pool. That just means that you're holding more liquidity within that liquidity pool, and those bots are more likely to tag you on their way up. So that's the waterfall effect that I'm talking about. If you look inside there, they're literally going to have that's going to be laid out with the tokens that need to be in there. Those bots can just literally ping it up and down, which it might not be the same liquidity pool, but in retrospect, it'd be literally just trading up that ladder, starting from the very bottom and then just all the way to the top, and being able to help control and maintain DAI whenever we reach those levels. So, but yeah, there's no other chain like it, because there's no other chain. If you go click on BSC or ETH, the chains themselves and the things themselves, there's 1 or 2 tokens in there, maybe just one, then it's burnt, and then it just the PvP aspect of the chains. We're over here, people are launching tokens and then literally handing each other 1% of the supply to burn it. What? You couldn't convince people just to burn their supply in general, much less to partner with someone and then make a liquidity bonding liquidity bond and then burn it, right? So it's just that there's a different feel over here. The stickiness of the communities is different. The knowledge of the communities is next level. Just the acceptance is there. I just definitely, we definitely all have a feeling and a definite feel of the just pop our bags, Richard, kind of thing. It's like, in my opinion, it's like they could literally come up with a way to mint that money all over again, so to speak, and literally have two massive bull runs in the so to speak within the pulse chain, right? Being able to get those things to parity, close to it, and then that protects a lot of people from a lot of things, because if you have copies reach parity on multiple chains, so if Ethereum does go down or something did happen, they would still have their copies on Pulse. They would still have their copies on any other chain that that's going to be utilizing it, and that's why Maker is taking a snapshot of their own. They took it already, and I believe that there's going to be a historical date from now on where people, when they take snapshots, they're going to go back to the day before Richard did what he did, and they're going to take snapshots of like the 4th of April 2024. Like, that's when their snapshots are going to go back to, because I believe that he uncovered and did some stuff that people already knew about. Like, the warped finance talks about using locked liquidity pools and being able to leverage and loan them out, and getting into these other like seemingly locked liquidity pools, and being able to unlock them through the use of loaning or other aspects. But with the deep liquidity pockets, it's massive for what we believe could be that at least what the 3-chain triangular type of meta chain privacy with the privacy technology. Yeah, that's, again, highly speculative, but it's just massive. But it makes sense for, like, just in general for him, right? Just someone that's a billionaire. That I believe that the only other thing after that if that comes out, the only, like, a connection to Bitcoin would be massive, because the onboarding and stuff like that would literally just do itself. Like, they would come through other chains. There'd be a line of communication between the 3 chains, so to speak, and just a way for us to be in the right place at the right time. And now it's just kind of like a waiting game. But yeah.
So Rick, the one thing we talked about a lot, I'm curious, we go back and forth as far as speculation, the implementation tokens that we talk about. Can you talk about that, what they are, how they might potentially...
Yeah. So I was talking about them earlier. So yeah, it's Q, I invited you to speak, bud, if you're there. Okay, so yeah, it's like a 1-for-1. I was kind of touched on it a couple times, but yeah, it's like a 1-for-1 acceptance type of token, where it can literally just mint whatever it wants and burn whatever it wants. And if you're the owner of a protocol, you can, since like, or the owner of tokens, he can literally burn DAI down to wherever he wants, pretty much. And he can just the ability to have that kind of control. So if something did happen and they didn't want to have that much in circulation, they could do 2 things. Well, number one, DAI can rebase. So like, if we got to 10 cents and he wanted to kill 10% of the supply, which would knock out, a lot of, like, a certain, not 10%, but like 10 rolls of our bags. We got to 10 cents and he wanted to take it all of a sudden down to 2 billion, but it still hit $1. But DAI could rebase up to where it needs to be. But he could also, technically, he could burn the tokens in one fell swoop. Like, just burn through anything, as long as you're the. Is that what you were touching on? Just the fact of being able to burn that DAI down if we needed to, or like how it just copy. Yeah, it can copy anything. So it's like, it's weird how it works, because it like literally categorizes what it is. Like, so if you look at Blast, they do it, but they also rebase ETH. They literally they ETH itself, like the real fucking protocol ETH. If you're holding your tokens on Blast, and you're a part, you can either be a part of the rebase or not a part of the rebase, because the rebase can work for you and against you. Because it can be a positive rebase, which means everyone gets tokens and it increases the total supply for everybody, or it can be a negative rebase. So if they didn't make money that month, then everyone loses. Everyone kind of loses what's going on, but the actual token value goes up. It's kind of weird. You're sacrificing. Like, whenever I was a part of a protocol called Gravitoken, it went from 0 to a $1.7 million stablecoin, right? And like on the way up, everyone was joining, and of course it's going to go up for, it lasted a couple months. By the 6th day, of course, we're sitting at 100 something million, but we're having to deal with the FUD of, where's my tokens, and it's just like people couldn't grasp the understanding of you're sacrificing your tokens to protect the chart, and in this case, you're sacrificing your tokens to literally get to the $1 million thing. So like the yeah, so Base has the ability to do that, like literally rebase ETH, and that's because the way that they're accepting all these tokens, and then they have like they have their own swap protocol. So another thing that we've seen them do with these implementation tokens is they have like a swap protocol sitting behind them. So like if you're giving it ETH, it knows that it gives you ETH, and you're giving it DAI, and it's getting DAI, and say if it has a bullish, or if they have a bullish or bearish sentiment, they might take that DAI and swap it into ETH, right? And then they can, or if you're just running the implementation token on yourself and you're just making money and you're using that just to hodl everything in and then categorize stuff and then utilizing it to turn it into a bunch of, whatever you need to, which is what he's been doing. It's just he can just take any token in, swap it to any token that he wants, and then take it out and swap it back, and he can do it all in like one fell swoop as well. And as he's doing that, he's technically it's minting and burning to a certain wallet, but it's also kept in a category on chain that's not tracked, right? That says it's spam or scam, whatever, but it's just kept in a category just like that, to where, because the value would hit the chain twice, doesn't need to hit the chain twice. So that's why it seems seemingly that's where I found out it's like, okay, well, not all this, there's real value behind it, but it needs to be it's just kept off and categorized in a way to where it's just not double valuing certain things. But the way that he's done it is like it's literally it's kept this stuff off chain purposely, to where I believe that whenever it does unlock, it's going to have its own category, so to speak, in my opinion. And then the fact that that Maker and Spark and Edgar, Spark, and Richard are all working together, seemingly, or they had to work together at some certain point to get to where they're at right now. Like, and then now it's just kind of like everything's kind of unfolding in front of us. And then as soon as he bought the S guy, it's like, in my opinion, that was just huge, because he's not going to spend that money. No one wouldn't spend it without his lawyers, saying something, or feeling comfortable enough to spend that money within a protocol that literally just came out, right? Like, it's like one of his would be something that he would try to tell us not to do, not to get into, unless you're very certain, about what's going on. You're not going to throw money around like that into a protocol unless there's trust, or something had been built, some layer of trust. And I think that he actually has something to do with the way that Spark works, the way that the stablecoin, building a stablecoin that no one's ever seen before, right? And my opinion, it's pretty much what we're seeing. Many other communities are utilizing the actual protocol, and there's other things that we can do to help collateralize it if we needed to. We could actually launch something like our own liquidity fork and use the tokens that's starting to build them up. And there's just other things that we can do to help as we move further along if we need to. But I think it's just pretty exciting to kind of be a part of it for now. But
yeah, Rig, I mean, it's been talked about many times before, but again, like, a lot of things on chain going on, right? We're speculating what the end goal is, but just the sheer fact that somebody spent, I think it was what, $1 million back in July to turn the minting of DAI off.
Right.
Why would you do that if DAI wasn't meant to be for something? If the copy was just a copy, just because whatever, just make the copy because he had to fork the chain. Why spend $1 million, to do that?
Yeah. Right, that's actually a good point. I mean, that's definitely some of the stuff that Nine Irons had uncovered. That someone had spent it, and I think it was more than that. I mean, I think they always knew they were going to turn it off. It might have just been a play on some of the stuff other stuff they have going on. Sending stuff to Lido and to Compound way before it. And us not knowing why. Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you send them money? Blah, blah, blah. So it's like now he's just setting up these bots for success, so to speak. And you can tell, like, these bots themselves and this technology that he's utilizing, it's like kind of crazy what they can do. Given enough time and given enough power, they can create sentiment. So what we've seen over the past couple of months is like this volume on BSC, and like especially past couple of weeks, the volume ramping up, and leading up to and then after the we saw the bots actually trading on BSC, right? It's like they literally created a sentiment to where it looks so natural that they're able to literally create sentiment. And that's I think we're heading to a future of like automated. We're just going to sit back. It's going to be an automated trading for all of us, And if you don't put your money to work, and you have to, and you still, like I said, you still have to have your money simulated as if it's still working through a regular economy, because the economies aren't going to be the same as what they were or what they have been. I think that could be another thing for dysnomia itself, is just a way for money to move around a community of people that have their own free will. And like I said, the way that you can do that with botting technology is like by creating this flow, this inner flow of monetary policy, that the bots have to trade down to, because it's like super exciting to find out, that why would he put so much effort behind protecting Diamond? Like, why would he put so much effort into the P stables and all this other stuff if he himself didn't think this was didn't think this was possible? And this dude's exactly the kind of person I thought he'd be, just super smart, and just absolutely ahead of his time, so to speak, and then doing things that maybe we wouldn't have done before as a community. And even taking on him as buying the bottoms of the hex, and just trying to be an all-around staple and good person within the community. I think he's definitely led the charge in that. Like the way that he first utilized everyone and got everyone involved with the IRC chats, and had them by their nicknames and things like that to get their attention. And just the way that he's built his community has been nothing but awesome. The face reveal, the timing of the face reveal, I believe things are well on their way, and now the hardest part is done, and now it's just about quote unquote sentiment and community belief. And then there might be sorry about the beeping. There might be a certain place, a certain point, or a certain place that he wants to see things. Been around since the very first Pulsechain sacrifice. I would just sit around and twiddle my thumbs, because they were speaking a completely different language than I knew. So if some of you are in here and have no idea what I'm talking about, just rest assured, keep coming back, guys, and put in the effort, and you're going to get what you put into it and get out what you need. A given, so to speak. But yeah, it took a while to get to where I got. And then, by the time this Pulsex sacrifice came around, I was speaking a little bit more in the Pulsex chat. And then, yeah, just been waiting for Pulsechain to launch for forever, pretty much. I spent most of my time on the BSC, doing my best to convert BSCians, whatever they are, Financians, to the Pulsechain.